Welcome, everyone. I'm Charles Payne in for Neil Cavuto. From housing to the minimum wage, the president wants people to get helped out, but now he wants companies to actually do the helping out. Now he wants banks to study Fannie and Freddie to dole out cash, regardless of risk for housing, and he's pushing companies to pay higher minimum wage that can actually replace welfare, but at the expense of private industry. Next Generation TV correspondent Michelle Fields is fed up with this. Michelle, we're talking about the modern welfare state where a $7 an hour job can get $15 an hour, where the private sector is supposed to lend money to people who've had a job for 6 months and put 5% down, and somehow that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, what the administration should be focusing on right now is promoting policies that spur economic growth. But instead, they're focusing on policies like raising the minimum wage, which kills jobs, which leads to more dependence on government. For example, in Washington, D.C., Walmart's planning on opening some businesses there. And you'd expect that D.C. politicians would be happy about this because the area has over 11% unemployment right now, and they need those jobs. But instead, what did they do? They passed a bill that would raise the minimum wage just for Walmart over $12 an hour. They're basically killing these jobs and leading to more people to have to rely on the government.
You know, Michelle, I've been listening to the president on this economic tour, this summer economic tour, sort of like Beatlemania without the crowds.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, what's interesting is that it feels like he's becoming more and more bold about the idea that this really is not an economic policy. It's about a fairness doctrine. It's about the fact that, you know what? All the success in America is all part of a public domain that we all should share in this thing. And he's coming closer and closer to saying this is how it should be. Forget about all this big-time corporate profits. We should all have some form of prosperity, no matter who's actually earning it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the entire nanny state, right? The reason why we got into this housing crisis is because the government has this idea that everyone is entitled to a cheap home. And the president just said this week that he's coming out and wants to encourage banks to give out, to start lending more. And this is what it's going to do. It's going to open the door to more risk, excessive lending, and get us back into the housing mess that we were just in. That's what he's doing.
I gotta tell you, and it's so funny because these same banks, if they were to go through with this, they'd be sued like 5 years from now during the next bubble for whatever reason, you know. But I guess at the end of the day, there's no way any of this stuff is going to go through unless the American public, probably in the midterm elections, decide, okay, this is the direction we want to go through. In other words, the point I'm trying to bring up is it feels like this midterm election is a sort of do-or-die moment for this country. Do we really want to stay with sort of the things that made us the greatest country in the world, or are we ready to try something different, something more quote-unquote fair, the bargain for the so-called middle class?
I think you're absolutely right. I think this next election is going to really be a question of, do the American people want a nanny state where there's this belief that everyone deserves health care, everyone is entitled to health care, entitled to a house. And look, we have over 7.7% unemployment, 7.6 unemployment, 46 million people on food stamps, and $16 trillion of debt. I think the American people need to make the decision on what kind of country they want. Do they want one where everyone relies on the government and takes care of them from cradle to grave, or do they want one where they are economically independent and independent from the government?
Well, I got to tell you, FDR had a lot of these same themes, and
Yes.
and you think about the timing coming in right after the Great Depression, and Herbert Hoover saying that he would create an economy with the chicken in every pot. It feels like the president's coming in the same sort of scenario, a big-time recession, where he's telling people, listen, we tried it. We tried the free markets. We tried capitalism. We can't contain the greed of the people in power. Give it to me. I'll be, we'll have a paternalistic society, but I'll make sure it's always fair for everybody.
Yeah, no, and I don't think the American people want the life of Julia, where the government's taking care of you in every area of your life. I think if we want a good economy, what we need to do is get the government out of the way of entrepreneurs and business people, allow them to have lower taxes, reduce the regulatory burden on them so they can open businesses, allow Walmart to come in. So then we don't have such high unemployment.
Well, I got to tell you, I saw that Life of Julia thing. It looked like she had on some Kristen Louboutin, so might be a lot of people out there who say, if I can get those for free, count me in. But we'll see what happens, Michelle.
I hope not.
Me too. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.